you done now?
So what does your husband do?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, he just lies around on his back all day.
Sounds like hard work to me.
I'm sorry. Afraid I'm a little bit accident prone.
Oh, watch it.
Excusez-moi.
He's fascinated with her.
This is one of my favorite recipes.
I know, madam.
So, what do you do in Washington, D.C., Mr. Green?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic movie Clue, one minutia analyzing minute at a time. My name is Brad Gilmore. His name is Jeff Smith. Jeff, minute 14. First thing, if I say pick one thing that stands out to you about this minute, the first thing you say is?
Monkey's brains, even though we don't know what that is yet.
Yes. That's
definitely Mrs. Peacock enjoying her dinner a lot. And also Professor Plum being fascinated with Yvette the maid.
Yes.
A nice way.
Yes, I'm sure in the most honest way of possible. He is infatuated would be the word. Now, it is interesting how quickly he's moved on, because the object of his affection at first was Miss Scarlet.
Yeah.
And now he's already said,
way across the table now, so no good.
Now, this might sound silly, because I really don't know, though. Because, you know, when you think of the French maid, there's obviously a very sexualized version of that exists in the public consciousness. Oh, it's like, ooh, a French maid, or she's dressed like a French maid for Halloween or whatever, right? And Yvette is a very sexualized version of a French maid in this movie. Is that really how they dressed? Like, is that how a French maid dressed?
I was wondering, were there actual French maids?
Yeah, I don't know.
They were just running around in short skirts and, dusting in front of you provocatively? Probably not. I mean, I don't know who created that version of the French maid, but it stuck.
I'll tell you what. I mean, it was a really risky Google, I'll be honest with you. But the first image that pops up when you Google French maid is Yvette.
Hey, Colin Camp, good job.
First image, and here it is. The French maid uniform originated in the early 19th century, so that's the 1800s for people who don't know, for servant duties worn by females. The role of the French maid has evolved since the 19th century from a servant to an image of desires or a sexual fantasy. It is not just the role of the French maid. It is not just the role of the French maid that has changed in the past 200 years, but also the design. So yeah, it seems as though they were, very conservative. If you're looking at a historical photo of a French maid, right, and it has nothing to do with like what you think of a French maid as today. So I don't know when the change happened.
And what are maids in France wearing now?
Yeah. Did they move along with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't really understand. So
you can't trust the movies, everybody. It's they lie.
So
even Clue lies. There's no maid that looks like Yvette.
Yes, there's definitely not. But here, just in case for people who want to know, if you want to ever dress as a French maid, if you're a man or a woman and you're interested in the attire, here are the needs that you have. You need to have a black dress with white trim that has a full skirt that is above the knee in length, a white half apron, usually with a ruffle or a lace. Okay. You need a ruffled or lace headpiece that serves as a bonnet, tights and stockings, high heels, usually black, a feather duster, a white or black lace garter, and then you need a choker necklace, and it says, and other cleaning equipment.
A vacuum.
whatever else you might need.
A power washer.
Windex. A power washer? What kind of maid have you ever had?
Well, hey, if we're going to clean, I'm more interested in that. And probably a noose if you're going to be,
If you're in this movie.
Clue territory, yeah.
Oh, well, now I wonder how much, for Colleen Camp to be the first Google image, I wonder if she had some sort of influence on this.
On the costume, probably not. I think even back then that was the cliche, and I'm guessing it's probably more of a theater thing. It probably happened in theater. I don't know why I think that, but I just think that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but good for her that she's number one.
First image, and it's her. By the way, not only is it her in the movie, it's her during the dinner scene, which is what we're talking about right now.
What?
Yeah, crazy. It's
Google on point.
Google.
On minute 14.
Google knows. Google knows.
Google knows.
So Google always knows. Okay, and Baskin Robbins always gets their man. So the as far as this minute goes, we're learning again more about the cast. But here's an interesting one: is Mrs. Peacock and Mr. Green are still kind of in this weird eye gaze with one another, like Green saying, "I know," and she's like,
caught. And then she changes the subject. So, what does your husband do?
And then Mrs. White says, nothing. And very quickly. So again, the nonverbal subtext that we're getting here is, okay, she's obviously hiding something. Obviously hiding something. And if
Mrs. White is probably right now the most suspicious of all, what do you call them? The game
piece characters. Yeah.
Yeah, the game piece characters. She's definitely, because, I mean, she had the moment earlier where, I see you know each other with her and Yvette. Madeline Kahn is like really digging deep into just the glances around the room and now just really casting off the question of what her husband does, which, I mean, good on her that she even knew which husband to refer to, because we will learn later she's had 5.
I guess we were just talking about the most recent?
Yeah.
The most recent?
Well, I mean, technically, I guess all 5 of them are doing the exact same thing. They're all just lying on their back.
True. Again, and we don't know what Miss Scarlet does exactly yet, right?
She's hinting at it because
hinting at it. So
lying on her back all day sounds like hard work to me.
Sounds like honest day's work to me. And Mrs. White. So okay, look. This is why breaking it down a minute at a time is so great, because you're really picking up on things that I've really never put together. When there's first when we have the Colonel Mustard line about how women are the bigger killers between the deadlier of the species.
Right.
It shoots to Mrs. White. Okay.
Right.
Now when Miss Peacock says, "What does your husband do?" Nothing. I mean, he just sits there and lies on his back all day.
Sure.
Right.
Which if you're watching, you're like, oh, he's dead. Okay.
Right. So you're like.
So right now we already know Mrs. White is bad news.
So we probably think she's the murderer.
He definitely had a hand in something at some point, and that's probably why she's there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how many husbands she has, but we can. If you're an astute audience member watching this for the first time, you can put together that she probably killed her husband. Why else would he be lying on his back all day? Why else would she say nothing? Why would the camera, pan to her when they're talking about the killers of the species?
Right.
We can put it together, which I wonder, is that the movie trying to frame quite literally her when the murders begin to take place? Should we be, because I'm always wondering, like, if you watch this movie again and again, I try to figure out, okay, who do they want us to think is the killer? Because a trope of a great murder mystery is there's the obvious suspect that the story would have you believe has to be the killer, and then there's a great twist at the end, and it's not them at all. So I wonder, is this them setting up Mrs. White for us to think that she's the eventual murderer?
Well, I mean, with the movie like Clue, you're kind of assuming that everybody there is guilty of something.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're just really pointing out that she's got a dead husband, at least one. and she's deadlier than the male. I mean, she's dressed like a Black Widow. She's dressed like she's going to a funeral already. The costume really gives away that she has had to wear black in many formal occasions. Probably not at dinner parties. I'm sure that dress that she's wearing at Hill House there, she's worn at least 2 funerals.
Yeah. It definitely seems like it's very funeral appropriate, even with like the kind of veil.
Oh yeah, she's got a veil. She's got a veil. The covering. Yeah, she's in mourning when she walks in the door.
Right. So we're putting it together that she's a murderer, or at least someone's dead. And then Miss Scarlet has the line of, after she says, "Hey, yeah, he lies on his back," and she goes, "Oh, sounds like hard work. Sounds like hard work to me." Yeah. Right there, because sometimes I'm reading into these too much. Because a minute or two ago, when she said, I'll eat anything," I didn't know if that was supposed to be some sort of an allusion to her, like a double entendre or not. Again, like when I was doing,
I'd say yes.
Yeah,
I think we're safe now that everything she has said is about her job.
So, hey everybody, I run a prostitution ring.
Yeah, in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
What's the number?
Yes. So again, we should be able to pick up. I didn't pick up it when I was a kid by any stretch of the imagination.
That's part of the fun of Clue, is that there's half the movie as a kid just goes right over your head, and it doesn't really affect your enjoyment of it. I didn't even realize what Miss Scarlet did in the first place when I saw this, like at age 10 or 11 or whatever it was.
Oh yeah,
like,
you don't get it.
Get it? I didn't know what a red herring was. I didn't, it didn't matter.
Yeah, but she's definitely, if you're an astute audience member, you can put together so far that we know that Mrs. Peacock is the wife of a politician. We know Mr. Green works in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
We know that Mrs. White is probably a killer of her husband. Maybe.
I'd say we can put money on 95% chance that he killed at least one person.
We can tell that either Miss Scarlet is either one, a madam, or two, a prostitute herself.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, I'd probably say prostitute. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then Colonel Mustard, we just kind of know is dumb because he asks what a butler is. And
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. What do you mean you don't know what a butler is?
Go on. I don't understand your silly talk. And then Professor Plum is just a perv. And then
we know that. And then we know not a lot about Mr. Green.
No, Mr. Green is probably the most mysterious one now, but he's throwing down the breadcrumbs for sure. He's letting us know that he is not just a goofball that spills his drink twice. Going back to what Miss Scarlet's job was that this minute where he spills on Miss Scarlet, or was that last minute? Oh, was this one? Okay. We do this more than one at a time, folks. Yeah. So it's hard to remember. So he spills his drink or his soup. Mm-hmm. The soup, he accidentally, but he does it. This one pretty naturally. He doesn't like this one. I don't know if it was faked, but you can definitely tell the difference between Miss Scarlet and Mrs. Peacock, because Mrs. Peacock doesn't really react. But when he goes to wipe off Miss Scarlet, she goes, "Watch it! Like you have to pay for this privilege."
Right.
Which is again another clue to what her job is. Like, no, hands off.
Right, and if we follow the ethos of her character, earlier in the night she was already groped once by Professor Plum.
Professor Plum, that's true, but didn't have a problem with that. But gave an watch it to Mr. Green.
Yeah, maybe she was like, okay, once in a night is enough.
She's at her limit of unwanted advancements.
Yeah,
like, okay, I gotta draw the line somewhere, and cleaning up soup is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, it's interesting that she does do that. And again, I don't know if that's definitely not a hint toward what we're going to learn is the blackmail reason for Mr. Green. I don't find
Oh no. If anything,
it's
like
more
she
on Miss Scarlet.
about that later,
Yeah.
when she finds out it was not true in 3.
Right. In the true ending. So the other thing I want to say about Mr. Green is we talked about in the last minute when he, pointed out that Mrs. Peacock's husband works in Washington and that she lives in Washington, and then Miss Peacock, Mrs. Peacock freaks out about it, takes the glasses off. It picks up on that in this minute where Mr. Green has this kind of like stare at Mrs. Peacock, like, I know exactly.
Judging. But then now that we're talking about it, that's why I like doing this podcast as well, because you've got me thinking about minutia that I've never thought about before too. She's a politician's wife. How dare you know who I am? Like, she's shocked. How do you know?
Yeah.
Well, she's hosting all these parties.
Maybe Mr. Green's... Has Mr. Green been at one of the parties?
What? I don't know.
I wonder.
Yeah, but how do you know who I am? That's just weird.
It is weird. But we know he knows who she is, and she's weirded out by it. But the stare that he gives her at the beginning, is it, hey, I want to make you uncomfortable so that maybe you'll get careless?
Yeah.
And get a little bit loose with your lips.
He's definitely, I know something you don't know, looking at her.
And then
for sure. And then they don't really interact much more in the movie after that. That's pretty much it for him and Peacock.
What else is weird, which would have been another like, hey, I'm a red flag, nice to meet you, hi everybody, is when she's regarding how much she loves the soup. And then she says, this is one of my favorite recipes. And
the food, he goes, I know, madam. And nobody goes, how do you know?
Right. Well, yeah. She's not even her. And we're talking about the monkey brains. Yes. Yeah. Not the soup, but the monkey brains. She's eating him. This is one of my favorite recipes. And he goes, I know, ma'am. And it's like, how do you know that?
Yeah. I think if I were eating one of my favorite recipes in a strange murder house where I was going to deal with my blackmail, and I said, well, first of all, I probably wouldn't drop that info. That's a little sloppy on her part.
But she was just kind of off-put by Mr. Green.
She was just in her zone, loving. Well, that too. Yeah, that's true. And boy, those monkey brains, she obviously loves them because, first of all, she starts eating before anybody. And then just the yummy sounds that she's making, to quote Young Frankenstein, the yummy sounds that she's making while she's eating it. And then... I
want to show you. So then image, this is a still from minute 14, but this is when she's eating the monkey brain or about to eat it. But look, you can get a direct window into the kitchen where she could see the cook. And I feel like the cook would be, if somebody was employed to like cook your food in your house,
right? I
feel like you would recognize them rather easily.
And she stands out. She's not the.
She's not going to blend into the crowd. She's a heftier gal.
Good point.
Very recognizable. Not someone who blends in too much. So I do wonder.
You're right. You know what? This movie is baloney.
But she hasn't looked in there to see the cook. I don't believe. But you would think that might, because look, still hasn't seen the cook. But it is interesting that she's right there.
She's right there. And what would have happened if she just looked? What would have happened in the movie if she looked over and went, "Oh,
cool,
Betty."
Yeah, and then
the way I like it.
I'm trying to see if there's a moment where she would see the cook, and it doesn't look like it.
That was it. Good eyes, man.
See, look right there. The cook is still. But not one moment. Wow. If you're watching this on video with us, you can see. But I'm at 47 seconds into minute 14, and you can see the cook is turned facing
the dining room.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't think I've ever looked into that kitchen before. I didn't realize that.
Oh, my gosh. And then when she looks into the kitchen where she would plainly see the cook, Wadsworth is standing right in front of her, blocking her view.
And he even has his arms kind of stretched out with the food. so she can't see. Oh,
Wow. And this is when he says, I know.
and then
now.
she looks away. Ladies and gentlemen, if you were not into this minute by minute breakdown of the podcast before, welcome to the show, everybody.
Wow.
'Cause even I wasn't sure about this podcast at first, and now I'm going to subscribe. I want to listen because I'm learning things as well.
Wow.
Minute by minute on the Clue the Movie podcast. Wow, that's a good point. He
Wow.
walks right in the way.
He blocks her. That has to be intentional,
Boom.
right?
Yeah, I think so.
It has to be intentionally done by him as the character, and of course by the storytellers.
I'm watching again tonight.
I know. Now I feel like I have to watch the whole movie.
It's changed everything. Oh man, I can't wait to go do Q&As at the theaters next week and go, okay, everybody, real quick.
Go to 43 seconds in minute
Start.
14.
Downloading Clue the Movie podcast because there's stuff in there that's not in the doc.
Oh man. Oh wow. That you know what? We got
Well
to get
done, Brad Gilmore.
Well,
I don't even
no.
know if you meant to do it. I think this was an accident.
It
but
was
well.
It was a complete accident, and I got to give a round of applause to the filmmakers, to the film.
Yeah. Even if it was an accident on their part.
It's well done.
Sometimes those things happen. Happy accident. That's like borderline Lone Pine Mall territory we just crossed into.
You have to be watching with intense focus to catch these things. And that one is something that honestly you've seen Clue the movie, I'm sure way more than I have, but I've seen it dozens of times, at least.
It never occurred to me that she could look in the kitchen, see, and he blocks her.
Wow. Oh my gosh. We have a revelation.
There's probably like 100 Clue fans that are watching this that have noticed that. And they're going, ugh, look at these idiots.
Amateurs.
Good job. You figured it out. And what if you made a documentary about it?
Well, you know what? You know what it reminds me of is I did this. There was this game show called the Movie Trivia Schmodown, and they did an all Back to the Future trivia edition, and I was invited to play for this Back to the Future championship, and I'm thinking, psh, in the bag, right? In the bag. And
I have a similar story, but keep going.
And I haven't missed a single question. Came down to me and this guy for the last questions. His was like, what was the score to the game in Back to the Future 2 that they say on the radio?
Oh my gosh.
Difficult. And I'm thinking, crap, I'm going to really screw this one up. And then they asked me, everything up to that point had been what happened in the movie.
Have you written the book at this point?
I had.
So you're the author of Back from the Future.
Yes. And I'm in
Coming
this.
to trivia, and they all know who you are.
Right. And so I'm thinking, okay, I can't mess this up, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell a book here. And it was in promotion of the book. And so they asked him the question.
Qualified. You shouldn't be allowed to play, but
I know.
are.
But they ask him the question, he gets it right. Then they come to me. Now, people who are listening to this, and Jeff,
Yes,
they had only asked questions about what happened in the movie, right? So like this character, who's this character, who plays this character, what happens at this, what's the name of the mall, what's the name of the motel that is on Hill Valley's main road, and like I knew that, the Bluebird Motel, but things like that. But this question that they asked me was, what Oscar was Back to the Future nominated for? And I, although wrote it about it, I could not remember that because I was so thrown off by this question. And so
I would take a guess.
Go for it. Go for it.
Would it be sound?
It is best sound editing. Yes, you are correct. You are correct.
Because the only reason I did that is because it's not obvious, but it does have great sound.
It has fantastic.
And I know it wasn't nominated for score, and I know none of the actors are nominated, and a crime that the screenplay wasn't nominated.
It's a crime, but I'm
also a little older than you, so I was paying attention. Oh, I was 10 when that movie came out. But I was a weird 10-year-old, so I knew that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had read it and I had written about it, and it was in my research notes, and I could not pull it for the life of me. I was like, is it sound editing? Is it special effects? Is it?
But there's multiple sound.
There's like
Academy
sound effects, there's sound editing,
Awards.
and it
Sound
was
design.
sound design, and it was sound editing, and I got it wrong. And,
Did it win or was it nominated?
Just nominated, or it won. No,
It
it won.
won.
Yeah, it
Or did
won.
it win?
Let me make sure that's correct. To the future, but I got it wrong. So I felt like, man, I just wrote this book
Yeah.
and I got it wrong.
This actually changes the way I feel about you too. So I went to a Clue trivia. Luckily, no one knew who I was when I went, and I went there just to film. It's one of the last things I filmed for the documentary, and the questions were like ridiculously hard because I went in kind of the same thing, like, I shouldn't even play.
Right.
Not fair. And they're like, how many rings is Colonel Mustard wearing on his fingers? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. So in the documentary, there are people that participated in the trivia that I talked to. They show up at the very end, but you don't see any of the actual trivia game. One, because they didn't actually clear me they said I could come and film it. But then afterwards, when I said, can you clear, that you're in it? And then they said, well, show me the footage. And I showed them the footage and then they didn't respond. But people that were there, and then I ended up playing with a lady that I didn't know. I just walked in and she didn't have a teammate. So we played together and we actually did win. But there was another team that they would have been a little more butthurt if they didn't win. So they just let them win.
Oh, yeah, I see.
But
I
the
understand.
questions were like that. It was like, it wasn't, who arrives first? It was, how many rings did Colonel Mustard have on his finger? And I still don't know.
So just so everyone else knows, so I can make sure that I look like somewhat of a Back to the Future aficionado, in the 1986 Academy Awards, Back to the Future received one award for Best Sound Effects Editing, which is what we brought up, but it received a further 3 nominations for Best Sound, Best Original Song for The Power of Love, and Best Original Screenplay, although it did not win.
Did it get nominated for screenplay?
It got
Good
nominated
job.
for Screenplay,
Good.
did not win Screenplay, and it the Best Picture that year, Out of Africa.
Out of Africa, yeah.
Out of Africa, which everyone knows and loves.
Oh, yeah. That's my next documentary. It's called Coming Out, the Out of Africa story.
So, you know what?
Is on my, I got to call him back tonight.
Yes. Well, you know what? I think, Jeff Smith, that might be a good place to end minute 14.
We
Talking
complained
about
about trivia at the end of this one. We ranted about difficult trivia.
but after making a crazy discovery of Peacock having the
Yes.
ability to see the cook and then Wadsworth blocking her
Yep.
because he couldn't let the
I
plot
think-
be revealed.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, hopefully, people that are watching, like, stopped there and did not go off on our little 2-minute complaint about trivia contests that are unfair to the experts.
Yes. Well,
Out of Africa, I've never seen Out of Africa. I'm sure it's a fine.
I'm
film,
sure it's a
but-
great movie. I've never seen it either.
But Clue came out in '85 as well, so I don't think it was nominated for anything.
And I don't think Out of Africa was the best picture. I'll be honest with you. They're like in a year where Back to the Future came out, which is
'85 was a good year.
85 was strong. 85 was strong. I wonder. Let's not go into that. I was going to see what else was nominated for Best Picture.
I'm gonna look it up. And everybody go away. It's fine, but I'm gonna look up. what's
Well,
up.
you know what? We can do it real quick. This is why people listen to the show. You know what I mean? They want to know a little bit more than just about Clue, the movie. So let's see. Best Picture. Here are the nominees: Out of Africa, The Color Purple.
Okay, Spielberg.
Yeah, Kiss of the Spider Woman.
What?
Prizzi's Honor, and
Nicholson.
Witness. I've heard of 2
Ooh,
of those movies.
Harrison Ford. Witness was nominated. Huh.
Prizzi's Honor was good. That was the Jack Nicholson movie, and I think was it Angelica Houston in that? I believe yes, and Kathleen Turner. Who was also in Romancing the Stone, which is a Robert Zemeckis film. Robert Zemeckis,
And what else was she in? That was Robert Zemeckis. At least her voice.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
That's
which
correct.
also has Christopher Lloyd in it, who is in Clue, the movie. And we're going to be back next week.
That's why he's Brad Gilmore, everybody. That's why he has 30 podcasts.
And that's Jeff Smith.
Hard to do, I know.
and this is back, not Back to the Future the podcast.
This is Back to the Future the podcast, everybody. This guy is Clue the movie.
This is Clue the Movie podcast.
I know who you are. You're Back to the Future.
14 minutes in. One more minute.
Hilarious, everybody. We're almost in Act 2.
We're going to be in another minute, here in a minute, and it's going to be minute 15 of Clue the Movie. ClueDoc.com, thebobradgilmore.com, and we'll be back next time with minute 15 of Clue the
Got
Movie.
excited and discovered something.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?